They had met mods coming down from Yorkshire and Grimsby, south from the Fens and Peterborough, coasting in on a mixture of India rubber and rhythm and blues, chrome horses and diplomats. Their two scooters formed part of a chrome cavalcade by the time they turned left at the clock tower and filed along the prom past the Jolly Fisherman's pub and the rows of cafes and guest houses. They cruised around the town, which looked on with a sense of outrage, tinged with trepidation as to how the weekend would unfold, with its acquisition of this temporary, khaki-clad population. There was already a noticeable police presence. The three of them eventually peeled off from the convoy and parked the bikes in a yard formed by the backs of three buildings just off Lumley Road. They stashed their parkas. Why spend a fortune on clothes only to conceal them from view with army surplus? Milt tilted his head to the sky. His sunglasses were coated in a film of road dust. "Like the lady says," he said, sniffing the air, "the weekend starts here." "Yeah, sea breezes, windy beaches, moving dunes." Skegness always brought Andy's submerged romantic streak to the surface. So maybe it wasn't Surf City, but it was good enough. The weekend stretched out before them, as eventful as they wanted to make it. "I'm starving," Don said. "Let's go to the brief." "I need some pills," Milt added. "If I can remember this weekend on Tuesday, it'll have been a drag." It was the kind of afternoon that only an English summer could provide, blue and brilliant. Andy and Milt were basking in the heat. Both were lying horizontally on the scooters with their feet dangling over the handlebars. Milt was reclined across his Vespa. Andy was draped over Don's Lambretta. A tightly rolled sleeping bag was fastened to the front rack of Milt's bike. Don's scooter had sleeping bags on both front and rear carriers. Andy was wearing his new green suit and white t-shirt, the black stripes thereon softening in the sun. The jeans, which Milt had been soaking and bleaching all through the week, clung snugly to his legs, complemented by a new pair of beige desert boots. Three khaki-coloured army parkas were hanging from the black iron railings which topped the low wall nearby. The hoods of all three parkas were trimmed with fur. Don's had a set of sergeant's stripes sewn onto the left shoulder. Milt's had a small circular tear in the fabric below the seam of the sleeve. He swore it was a bullet hole. There was a cloth badge on Andy's coat at breast height, embroidered with the words US Army. "Grease! Grease! Grease!" shouted an agitated mod into the cafe. "They're turning your bikes over," he said, pointing down the road in the direction of the lavatories where the scooters were parked. Milt was the first out of the door. Andy was the last. The pursuit of the greasers proved a futile exercise for Milt, Don and the rest of the mods. Their scooters were no match for the speed of their motorbikes, and the leather boys had disappeared northwards into the haze of the morning. Their calling card had been a few slicks of rubber stain burnt into the warming tarmac, and roughly the same number of dents and scratches in the pampered livery of the mod scooters. The damage was, in the main, only superficial. Don's fly screen had a hairline crack in it, which now divided the word Newark, and a bent stalk of a wing mirror. Laz's GS had a boot print in one of the chrome side panels and a bent front crash bar. In an odd way, these minor blemishes were already assuming the status of battle scars. Their anger at this assault on their bikes had, however, not subsided, and the group cruised the town until one of the Lincoln youths from the crow's nest of the last machine in the convoy spotted a motorcycle and sidecar combination, parked near the boating lake on the front. A toolkit was strewn on the ground beneath the bike, which was dripping oil from the sump gasket onto the grey tarmac. Three youths in leathers were bent over the machine. They were soon in the middle of the boating lake, having taken the last available boat in their attempt to evade the group of mods. Milt to the fore, running after them through the crazy golf range, vaulting fence and flower beds in their thirst for revenge. From the relative safety of the deck of boat number 15, the three motorcyclists viewed the mods, now only able to chant and jeer from the shore, as the burgeoning police presence in the shape of 3 vanloads of reinforcements now stood between the mods and their quarry in the middle of the lake. Milt had waded into the water, but had been yanked out of it after only a couple of paces by one of the policemen. There had been lessons for the learning throughout the summer, and the Lincolnshire police now had a complete and practical schooling in dampening down friction between mods and rockers. After the mods had been persuaded to disperse, the 3 youths, marooned in the boat, were escorted to safety and completed their engine repairs under the guard of half a dozen men in uniform and a couple of dogs thrown in for good measure.